back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Angela.
Well, time to have a look at the newspapers for you this morning. We'll start with the Times. It has its investigation into British Gas, who, through an intermediary, it's worth saying, broke into vulnerable people's homes to fit prepayment meters.
The Guardian leads with Shell's profits announcement, which the TUC union has called obscene.
The Express reports the Bank of England's forecast on the UK economy is looking optimistic.
And the Daily Mail leads with the disappearance of Nicola Bulley in Lancashire 1 week on.
OK, let's go through some of those papers then with the journalist and playwright Emma Burnell and the comedian Leo Kearse. Good to see you both this morning.
Hello.
Let's start with the Times, Emma. Should we be looking at these forcing of prepayment meters into vulnerable people's homes?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a disgraceful story, every part of it. I mean, prepayment meters are really bad in and of themselves because they're the most expensive way forced on the poorest people.
Yes.
But to do it in such a manner, it just shows such a lack of compassion and understanding of the human dignity of these people. We're talking about very vulnerable people. In the story there, we're talking about a woman with a disabled daughter who needs a hoist. Imagine that hoist will use electricity, and that, you know, all of a sudden you're halfway through and your meter goes off. I mean, that's just, you should not be forcing this on people. And to break into their homes, you know, that is just fundamentally wrong. To break into someone's...
I mean, to be fair, they had a warrant to do it.
Well, that in itself should be very, very questionable.
Well,
because,
yes.
you know, a warrant to break into someone's home should be something that is a last resort, not something we're doing because somebody's fallen a bit behind on their bills, which at the moment, who blooming isn't?
Do we blame British Gas for this, or this other company which they were using?
Well, British Gas say they weren't aware that actually people were doing this, don't they?
Well, if British Gas are employing this company and have paid them, they should be aware of what people are doing on their behalf, frankly.
Well, at least they have stopped now. They've said you can't do it anymore. But I agree, it is ironic that the most vulnerable people in society who have the least money are the ones who are having to pay most because of that system for their energy.
But, I mean, we talk about this being a warrant should be a last resort. I'm pretty sure it was a last resort. I'm pretty sure they were sent some bills that they didn't pay, and then this was the last resort because they didn't pay those bills. And it's, you know, although, I mean, it's terrible that people have their houses broken into to fit these prepayment meters. I've been on one. I thought it was great. You never got a bill. Just keep shoving those 50 pences in, never get a bill. But somebody's going to have to pay these bills, and if it's not the people who are being sent the bills, then everybody else's bills are going to go up to cover it.
That's a fair point.
I mean, we are talking about companies that are making enormous amounts of profits at the moment, but also, yeah, they need to pay the money off over time. Nobody is saying that they shouldn't have to pay the bill. I'm against the forcing of prepayment meters. Prepayment meters are generally a really bad option because they are very expensive.
But we need to get to the point, don't we, where when this would be less of an issue if, still an issue, but less of an issue if people on prepayment meters were paying the same rates as someone on direct debit. Why can't they?
Yeah, I mean, that would be, I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, I guess there's some administrative cost in fitting this thing and monitoring it. But yeah, it seems unfair to people who are obviously having trouble paying their bills. Shouldn't be paying more.
Yeah. And in fact, there are companies that will allow people who do get into difficulties to actually have a repayment plan without it's this intrusion into your home on such a scale.
And it feels, you know, you that kind of forced invasion of your home, and your home will never feel quite the same again once you know that somebody can force their way into it. You know, we've those of us who've been my home was burgled when I was 9 years old. I remember that. I remember the feeling of it, that feeling that somebody who had come into that place that I thought was a place of safety, you never quite lose that sense. And that's what's happened to these people.
Do you think it might encourage them to pay their bills?
No, I think they would, but most of these people would pay their bills if they could. What they should be on is some sort of repayment plan. Yeah. I'm not saying they should be able to not pay their bills. I'm saying that they should have longer and an easier plan to pay it.
Which some companies will allow people do. They don't pay, Leo, because they haven't got the money. That's why
really?
they're not paying. Now, but you're going to tell us about people. Oh, a lovely story in the Telegraph about the workforce reducing.
Yeah, so the workforce, Britain's workforce is going to be permanently smaller by 500,000 people, apparently, and this is going to cause economic stagnation, as if we don't have enough economic stagnation at the moment. So basically what happened is, over lockdown, everybody got used to not working and thought, this is better than working. I didn't have to get up in the morning, and everybody got their furlough money, and they got used to that lifestyle. So now people are taking early retirement, so they can carry on doing that, basically. And this is going to cause huge economic problems. And obviously, the labour market is very tight at the moment. The unemployment, thankfully, is one of the good things in the economy. Unemployment is very low. So yeah, we're going to need new workers from somewhere, whether we get them from immigration or from cutting the public sector, so that some of the people in the public sector who don't do very much, such as equality, diversity and inclusion coordinators, those kind of people, they can be repurposed in the workforce, doing something more productive for the country.
Does the paper go into the possibility that people will actually get bored being at home doing nothing and actually have to do something?
Yeah, people will go back to work just to, they don't care about the money, just to have people to talk to.
But there is a boredom effect there.
That's why I'm here.
Well, comedians never have a full-time job, do they?
No, we work 20 minutes a night. It's amazing.
Can we have a look? Sticking with the money theme, this is in The Guardian, Emma. Windfall tax. The government's under pressure to rethink what's going on with the windfall tax.
Yeah, Shell doubled their profits last year, and let's call this what it is. It's war profiteering. They are making a great deal of money.
Well, it's supply and demand.
It's supply and demand, which is what war profiteering is. It's profiteering from the fact that there is a war on, and energy has been reduced so they can gouge us more for the cost of energy. And there has to be a balance. I am not saying that Shell has no right to make a profit. But if you double your profits in a year where the whole world is suffering from increased energy costs, then I think there does have to be a balance, and there has to be some sort of putting that back in. Now, I'm in favour of a windfall tax, but I would like to see some sort of hypothecated investment from that windfall tax. Sorry, big word for this time in the morning. It basically said this money will go into funding people who can't, for example, pay their bills, making sure that we have lower cost energy for more people. So rather than simply putting that money into the public purse with no kind of understanding of where it might go, I think if we took that money from a windfall tax and invested it into energy infrastructure, gas storage, which we were ridiculous to cut down in this country, we would be better off in the long term, and people who are suffering would be better off too.
Emma, how much of this eye-watering figure that is everywhere is actually money that has been made here in Britain? I mean, Shell is an international company, and a lot of this money is actually being made elsewhere, and we already know the French are going to hit them for 500 million, I think.
Well, they're headquartered in the UK.
Yeah,
so
they don't make the money here.
They make some of the money here, they make some of the money internationally, but they pay their taxes here, so we are able to tax them here.
On what? On the profit they make here?
On the profit they make here, and the fact that they are an oil company, so the oil won't be coming largely from here.
If we tax them more here, isn't there a risk that Shell will just move their headquarters to somewhere where they don't get these unfair taxes just sprung on them whenever they dare to make some money?
Everybody always says this, but actually, that actually doesn't happen that often, because what they want is the workforce here, the work conditions here. So they want to attract the talent that wants to come to London, and that's always the trade-off. There is a trade-off to be made, but doubling your profits in a year like the one we've just had is just not a trade-off I'm willing to accept.
In 2020, Shell lost $25.5 billion. So were you clamouring for them to be paid from the public purse then?
No, my heart does not break for Shell when they lose money. I'm sorry.
Well, you can't have it both ways.
You can have it both ways. They won't tax taxed on money when they lose it.
They provide a huge
Yeah, they're
amount.
taxed on profits,
They provide
not
a
on
huge
loss.
amount of employment, and all the money, all the profits they make get paid out to shareholders through dividends, and that's so anybody with a pension basically is reaping the rewards of Shell's profit.
Well, I would vastly separate the pensions industry from the shareholder industry, because this is always the argument that comes back. You can't tax shareholder profit because of pensions. The idea that that Mrs. Miggins with her pension down the road is the one who's going to suffer from this is a nonsense. It is. We need to make sure that I am not against making a profit. I'm a business person myself. I run my own business.
Not too much profit.
But yeah, exactly.
You don't want a lot of profit.
I want a reasonable amount of
some sort of
profit and
Stalin-esque,
pay
sort
your
of centrally
taxes.
controlled economy.
No, I want a very, I don't want, I'm very anti-central control. I'm a massive localist, a massive devolutionist.
Why do you want to
but
impose
I do
a
think that we,
tax?
because that tax could then be paid to people in Blackburn, in Bromley, in places where they can really use that money. I would disperse taxes much more.
Shell's shareholders won't be able to use that money.
Very rich people hoard money. Very poor people spend money, and that's how you reinvigorate an economy.
You think pensioners are all really rich?
No, I don't think pensioners are very rich. I think pension company shareholders are very rich.
I tell you what.
There you go.
Time out. Time out. I think because we're going to have to move on to our next story. But my gosh, I think those of you watching at home would like to join in that conversation because I'm sure it's created so much passion here in the studio. I'm sure that you sitting at home are saying, he's right, she's right, they're both wrong. Let us know.
Yes, do. GBViews at gbnews.uk.